All right, well, welcome back to Reimagine. Here we are in January 2021, a pretty exciting time in the crypto space, no doubt. The whole blockchain world seems to be blowing up, whether we talk from a technical and design perspective or, of course, the raging bull markets we've seen so far to kick off this new year. And I'm intent on bringing you guys some of the best people in the space to speak to. Today, I bring you a man who made it into CoinMarketCap's top 100 most influential people in the last calendar year. We're talking, of course, of Jordan Lyall, who, known in technical terms as a DeFi product leader ConsenSys, but I would argue made famous by his development back in August, or made more famous perhaps. I don't want to diminish some of your other work, Jordan, but made more famous by his meme coin project, which took over sections of the DeFi space, managing to rack up an impressive $48 million market cap at its peak. So much to unpack there and what happened. But firstly, Jordan, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Asher. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
All right, so let's kick things off. I introed the meme project, how it sort of has evolved a little bit. Most people in this space are going to be reasonably familiar with the story, but for those who are new, who were sleeping under a rock at the time, give us the briefest of recaps of how this project came about and what makes it so unique.
Sure. It came out of thin air almost. It was like this magical moment where created a Telegram group, and we had this crazy idea of what if you could, instead of yield farming, governance tokens, like was all the rage this past summer, right? What if you could yield farm for NFTs? And so it's really kind of bringing together DeFi and NFTs, and people loved it. We kind of pioneered this tech, and a bunch of people got excited. A bunch of artists are getting on board, and it's this really just fun opportunity to kind of live in both worlds, this crazy new financial structure and this amazing art. It's a lot of fun.
It certainly is, and I would argue that, and I know I've heard you say before in previous conversations that you would say this kicked off some of the sort of food token wars, as it were, that we saw crack through 2020, from your yams to your sushis and beyond. Speaking about the impact of meme, it's been a number of months now. We've cracked into a new year. Looking ahead, what longer or middle term impacts have you seen come out of this project?
I think it's kind of kicked off, like you said, this kind of new way of looking at NFTs. I feel it impacts a few different areas, because it is at this crossroads of NFTs and DeFi. It's caused people to think, okay, maybe there's a new way of distributing NFTs than just to the highest bidder, right? We Everyone's also really excited about this amazing art and these brand new digital artists that are bringing their fans and followers to the NFT scene, which can only help Ethereum and some of these other projects in this space that are the platform for a lot of this work. But it's tough to be a user where some of these ETH whales can drop 20, 30 ETH on some of this artwork, and the little guy is priced out. So we're using some of these DeFi mechanics, some of these DeFi principles that we've been building the last couple of years and applying it to this NFT art space. And it really kind of democratizes and makes it a little bit more accessible for fans of some of this NFT art, to own one of these pieces. It just kind of breaks down some of these barriers, is more of like a democratic way of getting art into people's hands. So it's really fun. And then at the flip side, it's like, okay, what have we learned on the NFT side that we can apply within DeFi? And there's a lot of cool things that are going on, like on the DeFi side, and making things accessible for users that are, okay, I know what this art stuff is all about, but what's DeFi? What's Uniswap? What's that about? So it's really interesting how the two camps are kind of influencing each other, I think.
I want to drill down in a little bit more as to how you think this market's developing. But before I do, could you just explain a little bit to some of our viewers who might not be as aware as to how you're using that sort of democratizing impact and how that's built into the tokens sort of economics to explain to some of our viewers?
Right. So yeah, NFT art is, we don't have to get too deep into that, but it's just a way to kind of prove ownership of digital content, and you do that through the blockchain. So you're able to just save any JPEG or PNG out there, but you can't really prove that you own it, and you can't track it, and you can't sell it. So right now, this is kind of all the rage, and there's lots of hype. And as more and more famous artists kind of come to the scene, see the opportunity to earn an income, you're starting to see these prices go really high. I don't know if your audience is familiar with what happened with Bearable a few weeks ago. The artist made millions of dollars in one weekend based on selling some of this NFT art, digital art, all like proven and tracked on the blockchain. And so we started to see this model where only if you're loaded, only if you're an ETH whale, can you ever hope to get a piece of this art. A lot of people are collectors, right? Everyone's collecting, from baseball cards to postage stamps to what have you. This collector mentality still exists in the digital space, and with NFTs, it's kind of caused it to flourish. But I like to collect things. I like to collect art. I have some of my favorite artists' NFTs, but sometimes it's hard to drop down so much money. We've actually kind of, like I said, broken down the barriers. So what the user does, instead of just forking over ETH and buying ETH, they're kind of taking this a little bit different action that previously was only seen on the DeFi side, which is this concept of staking. And all staking means you're depositing some sort of value, in this case, a token. In our case, it's the meme token. You're depositing the meme token into a smart contract. It just means it's almost like a bank account or a CD, certificate of deposit, that's just sitting there. It's a smart contract that you'll upload or deposit your funds. And then over time, instead of earning interest, you're earning points. In our case, we call them pineapple points, just to have a little fun with it. So over time, return for me locking up my meme tokens, I'm earning these pineapple points, and then later I can redeem these pineapple points that I've earned on really great artwork in the form of an NFT. So by doing that, it doesn't require, you don't have to have a ton of money. You just need to get yourself some meme tokens and stake that over time. It's a little bit more of like a gamified system. And we've seen it's definitely something that is a little bit more engaging for many users, right? If their favorite artist is doing an NFT drop on the meme platform, you're kind of racing your buddy to get into the next pool. And we see a lot of users continue to come back throughout the day to see how many pineapple points they've earned and how many they need to earn before they can mint their next piece. And it really just tries to approach it in a different way, where it's like, yeah, it's great. We're kind of distributing NFTs, but in a sense, it's like bringing the community together, creating a bunch of passionate fans. And at the end of the day, it's getting the artist a little bit closer to their fans. A lot of people talk about that, how tech in general, and now crypto, you're able to cut out all the middlemen, no record label anymore, no distribution deals. Like, an artist has direct connection to the fan. And we're kind of going after something like that in like this gamified way, and just hoping to have a little fun with that whole process.
So, I mean, I love the idea of what you're putting out there. This community-centric approach, which, as you say, cuts out some of those middlemen, cuts out some of those air jobs that would otherwise sap so much of the value from the room, you know, and that's, I think anyone who's even touched on the art space, you know, knows that often takes up so much of the energy out of the room. But I guess I'd wonder on the flip side of that, you know, thinking as potentially like an artist, you know, if I'm an artist out there and I want to get the most value for my art, I want to sort of, you know, make a big splash. I'm not going to be incentivized just to sell to that big old whale who's going to drop down, a couple of dozen ETH in order to buy up my artwork project. Like what's the other side of the economics of this, or the tokenomics of this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one of our focus at the meme project is we're very pro artist. We do everything in our power to make sure the artist has a great experience on our platform, that they're earning as much, if not more, than they can on other platforms. We're still in the experimentation phase, but we're starting to learn things and experiment in different ways to make sure the artist is compensated for their work. And it's a little bit different because we're not straight up selling the art. We're having to find other ways to, whether it's take a small fee, or things like that. Or so just to give it to you straight, there's a couple of different ways where an artist can make money on our platform. With staking, something we've recently experimented with is a small fee. So we take a small fee in ETH and distribute most of that to the artist. So I'm earning pineapple points. I'm using these pineapple points to mint NFTs, and it depends on the rarity of the NFT asset, but I may pay a small piece of ETH, maybe 0.1, depending on the rarity. So you're paying a few bucks, $100 depending on the rarity for the piece as well. So it's still a fraction of what you would have paid had the NFT launched on another platform as a user. But this way it allows us to make sure that the artist is compensated. It makes sure that the meme project continues to operate. And it just kind of helps a successful economy here. And then after we've gotten the user excited about this new art, we will do more of like a standard auction. So we'll have a one-of-one piece. So it's one unique item that gets auctioned off by the artist, and a majority of the proceeds go to the artist. So they're all in all, they're able to earn as much, if not more, than they would on other platforms. And so far, our artists are really excited about something like that. But it is still kind of early in this space, right? And we're continuing, and you're seeing other platforms experiment on different things as well. I think to your point about just like hoping one artist gets in there, yeah, sure. It'd be great to hit a home run every time you're at bat, right? But you kind of know that like that's not going to always be the case. Maybe some of the top artists are able to sell 6 figures every time they do a drop. But most of the artists that we're working with are thinking long term, right? You kind of need to build a base. You kind of need to create this audience and get them engaged. And every once in a while, maybe swing for the fences, so to speak. So yeah, we've found this approach that's a little bit more or organic, or kind of a little bit more widespread, where we're not necessarily in the business of just like minting NFTs. We want to mint an NFT fan and mint a fan of this artist and create this relationship and help foster this continued growth, and not just sell one auction and walk away. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And again, I love the vision you put out there. And I guess I wonder, I remember towards the end of last year, taking a sort of check of the pulse of the NFT space, as it were. There was a real passionate surge. You were seeing a lot of reporting towards the end of 2020, certainly sort of like third, fourth quarter 2020. I'm sure you were right in the middle of that. I don't need to tell you about it, but this sort of NFTs, as the DeFi sort of boom was taking place, people were saying, all right, NFTs are the next natural step. We're seeing this market grow. It's sort of, in a lot of ways, the DeFi space has cooled a little bit. I mean, whether it truly has or not is a second question, but it's less of that sort of mania phase as we were seeing a couple of months back. And similarly, at least from a headlines perspective, from an outsider's perspective, you've seen that NFT space seem to cool off as well. Looking out to the wider market, like, do you see trends of growth? Do you see this taking off? Is this a gradual process? Have we hit that mania stage yet? What's your insider's take?
Honestly, I think we have a ways to go here. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and I'm happy admitting that. It won't be the first time, right? But I honestly think we've got a ways to go. A lot of it is impacted by, to be honest, like the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are a lot of reasons why people are moving their money into NFTs, and it's actually shown us year over year. Of course, we don't have a lot of data; it hasn't really been a thing for more than 3 years. But we've seen that with some of these market cycles, NFTs actually hold their value more than some of the top crypto currency. So whether it's because they have a bunch of money and they're trying to diversify, or because they just really love this art and they see it going up in value, or they just are willing to pay whatever to get their hands on this and tell their friends that they're the only owner of this one NFT by this amazing artist. I think we're just in the early stages. We're just now seeing some of the top artists start to get interested in what's going on here. They're starting to see that there's a real opportunity to bring their fans over. There's an opportunity for some of these artists to create real revenue, to finally start getting paid what they're worth, so to speak. We're talking to a lot of artists that are really, really bullish. And I think bringing their fans over, and it's going to require a lot, right? Bringing crypto noobs over to a platform like ours is going to take a lot of handholding. It's going to take a lot of improvement on user design or on user experience. It's not going to be easy, but I honestly think we're a little bit early. Not to say that there isn't like hype out there, and who knows what the price of some of these things are going to be down the road. But I think in this kind of a long-term digital artist monetization and content distribution, and we finally can, we can have a digital native piece of art, and all the other applications. I tend to focus on art because that's kind of where I've been. But there's so many other applications for NFTs that I think it's just way early right now.
I mean, certainly it does seem early, and I guess I wonder, as the crypto markets as a whole boom, and you mentioned that there, that like, this is ultimately the growth of this industry is going to be tied to the wider popularity of crypto markets as a whole, and that totally makes sense, at least for now. I'm sure there may be some sort of decoupling in the future, but for now. But, I sort of wonder, like, and I'm getting a little bit like utopian or looking beyond or like grand scale here, so, bear with me on this, but like, I'm thinking about, say, the mainstream art market. And, there's that famous story, the Salvador Mundi, the most expensive painting ever sold at auction for $450 million, a Da Vinci painting, just a few years back. And it was originally sold at auction in 1958 for like 30 pounds or something to that effect. And, so over that period, over like, 60 years, it jumped from 30 pounds to 450 million. Now, like, I look at the NFT market now, and it's sort of part of me, in that, as I said, utopian vision sort of idea, sort of thinks, is that where the digital art market could head? Does that passion or that sort of investment, or does it go from a collector's passion, that kid who buys the Pokemon card when he's young because he really likes Charizard, and now he's selling the print, mint edition for $100,000? Like, can you see that happening in the NFT space? And is that something that you think would be good for the space?
I think it's good long term, and I do see a situation, and everyone's going to love having the physical piece. That's always going to be unique. That's always going to be something special. There's going to be something extra. It's going to hold extra meaning if you have a physical item. But if you think more about where we're going as a society, as a planet, more and more going online, spending more time than ever in front of a screen. COVID kind of accelerated all of this, but there needs to be digital representation of things, and then some things are going to be more valuable. This artist created this piece. There's going to be a ton of inherent value there. I think we're going to see something similar to that, where it's just kind of assumed that this is a digital good and it's worth value, and it's worth something. I think it's also pretty similar to like the learning curve in a sense is similar to like when you first hear about Bitcoin and what the blockchain is, and then you start noticing all these other projects. You know, money. A lot of people's first response, right, is like money has to come from a bank. Money has to be printed by a government, and that's just the way it's been, and that's the way it has to be. Well, when you kind of zoom out, you realize that hasn't always been that way, right? And that there's something different that can come later. And then those of us that are in this space, it's like it's a given. It's something obvious. And when I talk to younger people, when I talk to my kids who don't have this kind of background of this understanding that no, money has to be printed and you have to be able to look at it and you have to put it in a bank, they kind of assume they're kind of already onboarded into this like digital value. My kids spend all their allowance on Fortnite and Robux. Like they get crypto, and they get digital assets as well. It's just kind of the next step. That's why I think it's always kind of interesting to hear from people that are believers in crypto but not NFTs. So it's
Right.
the money can be digitally native but not anything else. Like that's always been interesting to me. But I think minds are changing, and the next generations, it's just going to be a given. I really think that digital content is kind of here to stay, and this is how we manage it. There's going to be hype cycles. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be record breaking sales and things like that. I think it helps the industry overall moving forward, just to kind of spread the message and communicate this thing and have it sink in. Yeah, it was great when Bitcoin hit 19,000 a few years ago, but now that they're seeing it blew past that, and its long-term value is continued to be displayed, I think people start to take it seriously. So all the whole digital art market may collapse, but I think long-term it's up and to the right.
So I mean, does it take that generational shift then? I mean, is that what you reckon it will ultimately take, or can people learn to love the sort of NFT and digital assets, beyond the financial asset space?
Yeah, I think people can and will and are. Um, I think it's happening. We're seeing it happen. I think it's not going to be a mainstream thing within the next year or two. It may take a couple of years to get there, just like finance, just like on the DeFi side. Um, it's going to be some slow growth, but by the time the next generation gets older and they have their own disposable income, I think that's when we'll see it kind of explode.
And so that brings me back to a question of now. I've been floating off into the future for the last few minutes, but just bringing us back to sort of the moment. I guess I'm just sort of want to think back to, I love that you've turned this project, this meme coin from a sort of joke, spontaneous late night tweet into a full blown NFT market solution and approach. But I guess got to wonder, like early on, when you kick this project off, and I've heard you speak about this in various interviews in the past and in comments where you sort of said there was a bit of a hackathon style approach when it was getting kicked off, and you were sort of trying to figure out what you were going to make of this, once it launched off the ground. But ultimately, I guess, and you've used this term as well, you wanted to make meme token the sort of 2020s Dogecoin. And it was sort of tapping into that market, that sort of market of fun and kitsch and something a little quirky, and you've got the pineapple as the symbol, and these things have all then been cauterized and used in effective ways. But when you manage to hit a market of 48 million, a market cap of 48 million just like around a month or so after you launch, I mean, what does that say, if anything, about the maturity of the space right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It was strange times for sure to go like duration, like you said, 1 month from a silly, stupid idea where late night I was just kind of making a joke on Twitter, and then that turned into a Telegram group, and it was this passionate community which went and created a token, and then this token didn't have any value, but people were paying money for it. And then I grabbed a couple engineers and we said, let's go build something. We actually built a protocol on this. And it was like idea to protocol in 10 days, like actually live on Ethereum mainnet in 10 days. And then a few weeks later, like you mentioned, this price was just going up and up, and it had a lot of, like, there were a lot of reasons why. So there were a couple projects similar to ours. The way we were different is, like, we weren't anonymous, at least I wasn't, because of how it kind of, the origin story, and it kind of coming from a tweet that I made. I was already doxxed, right? I was already part of this. Not that I wouldn't have been anyways, but like my name was front and center.
Right.
I come from ConsenSys, so there's like this expectation of some legitimacy, I guess, that's there. Just like certain things falling right into place, where we had this really cool idea to some really cool art, several influencers, so to speak, taking notice. Andre Cronje of You're in Finance, he posted a tweet about us, and it just kind of took off from there. So fundamentally, the token, it shouldn't have been worth 1,600 or 2,000, whatever it ended up getting to. And I was kind of, those were just crazy days, because so many people, I knew that they were, this couldn't sustain. A lot of people saw the token supply number, because part of the meme of Wi-Fi was that there's only 30,000 or however many tokens there are now. So one token is worth a lot. So when they saw our project, we were trying to do something within DeFi and NFTs. NFTs are hyped. There's only 28,000 tokens available. I should have one. So there were these, like, certain kind of, there was a combination of some of these factors that just sent the token price to the moon. A lot of FOMO, a lot of craziness, a lot of people getting wrecked because they bought at the top. And I just want to make it clear that, like, that wasn't what I set out to do. That wasn't my goal, to be honest, because our project came from a community first. And it wasn't like, okay, we're going to go build this protocol and we're going to have this token and we're going to distribute the token and we're going to hang on to a team fund and we have a developer allocation. We had none of that, because it was airdropped to this token. It was really just a silly idea from the start. So we didn't have, it's not like the project or any of the founders sat on a bunch of tokens and we're trying to get it to pump and we wanted to dump at the high. So there was a lot of good things that came out of it, because it kind of put us on the map. A lot of negatives around such a crazy volatile price, because it just kind of sends the wrong signal sometimes. I try to separate the project from the token as much as possible. It's really hard, because we call both the token meme and we call the project meme. And then you have to be a token holder to actually use the product. So that's less successful than I would like it to be. But at the end of the day, and some people hold us, or some people act critically towards us or are critics of ours because of this token. And I think sometimes explaining how it came about, like I just did, helps address some of those concerns. But it's not my intention or anyone in the core team to do things that impact the token price. When we first built it, the price of the token was $15. So it costed you, that was the barrier of entry, was $15. And then a few weeks later, a few $100, and then several $1,000s. And it's been a crazy wild ride. It kind of put us on the map, but I wish it didn't take such a volatile path there these last few months.
Yeah. No, and I guess it is interesting in that space, as you said, that this project had you as as a face to it, as opposed to your sushi swaps, which are covered with pseudonymous names, Chef Nomi taking money out and then putting money back in, and sort of as a question of good faith and bad faith actors. And you've come out obviously as a faith, as a good faith actor and someone who's proven himself to actually want to invest in this project and actually make it something real and tangible in the long term. But I guess, I don't know, getting back to that core question, I mean, do you think the DeFi space as a whole is ready to start even taking itself seriously Does it need to take itself seriously? I don't know. Like, it's just when people start getting, wrecked at the top, and it damages the sort of the good ventures that people are doing. Do you think that has a lasting impact, or that's just the price to play?
It has a lasting impact, and and that's the price to pay. Like that's just kind of what we're faced with, right? Like there's not a lot of other options besides kind of giving up decentralization or giving up ownership and handing it over to the authorities and getting some regulators in here. And you're always going to have different countries and different regulations around on-ramp and things like that. But unfortunately, it's just kind of a price we got to pay. It's a really risky time in DeFi. Every project is risky. There's all sorts of risk, even when, a smart contract gets audited and something's reputable and it's holding millions of dollars and it's received all these audits. At the end of the day, it's still susceptible to risks such as volatility of the underlying price. If ETH somehow collapses tomorrow, it impacts all these other protocols. So even if you think that your money, if a stable coin is only stable until it's not. So there's so many different aspects, so many different ways to get wrecked, and it's still so risky. But most of us that are in this space know that.
Right.
It's the new users that may not. People that are FOMOing in because their friend just made a killing. That's where the problem is, and it comes down to education at all the layers, at the wallet layer, at the protocol layer. It's not just education, but it's user experience. We tend to throw that around in crypto and DeFi, right? It's like we need more user experience, and we're taking baby steps there. But I think a lot of it has to do with informing the user of what's going on. And, random protocol from a developer that throws something on GitHub, in a overnight, they could throw up something on mainnet, and then all of a sudden they'll have millions of dollars in funds tied up in the smart contract. Okay, was it the fault of the developer if somebody gets wrecked? Is it ultimately on the user who's brand new and just installed MetaMask and don't know what they're using? So it's in a way, it's like a painful, necessary step. We have to do everything we can to help these users from getting wrecked, losing a bunch of money, help protect the whole industry from getting overly regulated. It's teamwork up and down the stack across the board, and but it's kind of like we just kind of have to get through it until we build out the tools and build out this kind of education system out there. And anyone who's used a product and tried to share it with one of their friends, they realize that this may be a few years away, especially with layer one directly interacting with the smart contract. I think it's going to be a couple of years of DeFi growth and layers of user experience until we can say that this is for a mainstream audience.
Right, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with that education approach, and educating it at every step along the way. But I guess when we're in an industry whose ostensible motto, or at least one of the mottos, is "Don't trust, verify," right? And that's sort of a guiding principle of so many who are already in this space. I wonder what education responsibilities do exist, and as you say, at the end of the day, if someone's choosing to put their money into something they don't truly understand, is it, do they not bear some more significant responsibility? Is it better that we educate everyone at every step and sort of mollycoddle them and treat them like babies, or do we just stick up a sign effectively around the crypto space and the DeFi space and say, "There be dragons, beware," entering the Wild West? What is the responsibility of the community to try and educate? Is there any sense of collective responsibility, or this is decentralized, sink or swim?
Yeah, that's a great question. it's tough to answer because I think it's like I said, it's everybody's responsibility. I think every new user needs to know that, and whether you're just doing something in a decentralized way, or you're trading on dexes, or you're throwing money into a centralized exchange, there are risks all around. It's not like one is necessarily less risky than the other. Um, I think people need to know that what they're getting into, and I think just the history of like the price of Bitcoin and some of these things, users know this is volatile. They may not know how it works, but they know it's crazy. There are lots of um, knocks against crypto, and people kind of know this thing is volatile. So hopefully, like there's this air of like, this is interesting, this could be world changing, but it's really dangerous. So I think there is this kind of this understanding, but we need to continue with that. We need to let users know that when you submit a smart contract, a million things can happen. You could be phished, you could be sending to the wrong contract, you could be paying too much in gas and you don't realize it. You could be facing um, slippage and paying a horrible price for tokens, and all of a sudden you've lost a lot of money. Even though the exchange, in that example, the exchange worked as it was supposed to. Just the user doesn't know what slippage is, and they're not paying attention, and they end up losing half their assets there. Little edge cases like that I think we need to, as an industry, pay more attention to. But it's tough to kind of expect random protocol developer to provide extra time in creating this user experience, providing any kind of like customer support. Um, so I think it's just, there are a lot of tools, a lot of people, and a lot of projects that are working towards this. At ConsenSys, I led a team that built the DeFi score, and it kind of makes the assumption that like, okay, not everyone can read a smart contract. Most people that are in DeFi cannot. So how do you know what this smart contract? How do you know, is this less risky than that smart contract? What about even just reading a financial statement? How do I know that the liquidity over here and over here, or the collateral being deposited on this platform is better than that? So we try to take all these factors and kind of bubble it up, create one metric. So it's called the DeFi score. We tried to aim and try to create an objective score to analyze risk across all these different DeFi protocols. So it's early days. It's an open source project. There's a long way that we need to go, but we're seeing more and more tools kind of with this same vision of building layers to add trust, or at least educate and just create this extra layer on top of these DeFi protocols. Again, it's really early, and it'll be years until we might be considered comfortable with the situation, if ever. But it's going to take time. We're still early.
Another noble project that seems to be carrying your name, Jordan. You're creating a nice positive trend for yourself here overall. Look, I mean, I guess so. This leads, and this is going to lead me to a sort of another set of questions regarding sort of more of an outlook and what you're looking for. But I guess I just want to start by asking, here we are at 2021. January, looking forward to a new year. We've had a bit of a crazy year over 2020. Lots of interesting development, some consolidation, some maturity in the space, some hyping, some bull runs. The list goes on and on. But here we are at the start of 2021. Now, I want to start with a primer question, which is just that, throughout 2019 and 2020, I was covering the whole space as a reporter in all different facets, and everyone's telling me mass adoption, mass adoption, mass adoption. That's the mantra. Here at the start of 2021, is mass adoption still the mantra? And if not, why not? And if yes, why so?
So before all this NFT craziness, I would have said no, just because I was building, the DeFi Score project and some of these other projects at ConsenSys. It was clear that it's really early, and it was like, if you would have asked me a year ago, it was like mass adoption not for a while. It just doesn't make sense that you know, my wife, much less my parents, would get involved in something like this. So we were working on things to like, okay, we're just going to punt on mass adoption. Let's just build out this foundation, start incrementally building towards that, right? But it's still a few years out. Enter NFTs, and some of the top artists in the space are entering the game as well. Beeple and so many other top artists, RAC Grammy winning recording artists, and a bunch of other talented people are entering the space. I think this is kind of speeding up that process, accelerating us towards what some might consider mass adoption, because you can kind of make a case within this year, the year of 2021, that musicians and artists are bringing on users that we would consider uh, part of the normal world, users that may be in the mainstream, more mainstream users. So that might accelerate us to what we call mass adoption. I'm hoping that doesn't lead to innocent people losing, their kids' college funds and things like that. I hope these guys don't get wrecked. And I think we still need to take like this thoughtful, measured approach. But it's exciting that this technology even is now something that's being discussed in non-crypto circles, and we're bringing in new users. So where last year I would have said, no, let's stretch this out, I think things are kind of getting accelerated here, and it might be closer than we think.
That's an exciting primer, and came out better than I even hoped, leading to my next question, which is, given we're seeing that momentum, given things may be accelerating faster than you may have previously thought, what's your focal point? What's your absolute one takeaway that you're hoping to get out of 2021?
It's the focal point. Where am I hoping to get around? There's so many things that excite me about what's going on. I'm an Ethereum guy. I am kind of deep in that ecosystem, and while there are a lot of projects that are out there doing some really interesting things, and I'm there are a lot of really cool people and smart people and building great tech. I'm like pretty deep into Ethereum, and I'm excited to see what's next in this longer term roadmap with ETH 2.0. There's a lot of cool things coming out of on the DeFi side, and like it's just amazing to see. There was a lot of hype in DeFi this summer, but they're kind of turning it into something that can be long lasting. And even yield farming's felt like a trend, and people at the end of the day are gonna get wrecked. They're actually able to turn these things that looked like little silly scams. They're able to turn these things into real platforms. We're seeing more and more DAOs. We're seeing like up and coming like community token projects and social tokens. I'm really excited about that as well. Social tokens. Um, what I'm really excited about, and maybe it's just because I've recently gotten uh, into the metaverse, as they call it, and these VR worlds and virtual worlds, like you've heard of Decentraland and Crypto Voxels and Somnium Space and Sandbox. Like we're starting to build out. I'm I'm going way off on a tangent here.
Go for it. Go for it. Run with it.
I've been spending a lot of time recently. We're talking the last several days and weeks, just totally geeking out on some of these 3D worlds and virtual environments that we weren't able to pull this off with like last decade's technology, but we couldn't have really pulled it off without NFTs. So it's really exciting to see that, okay, now that we could actually prove digital ownership, which we can only do with NFTs, what does it mean for these virtual worlds where you can say you own that house or you can say you own that item? I've been spending a lot of time. We just got an Oculus. I got an Oculus for the family for Christmas. Right. And it's been really fun to kind of get into these virtual worlds and display your NFTs on your virtual wall. And more than an NFT that you could look at, but one that you can really experiment with or explore and interact with. So it's really opening up a bunch of interesting things. So I'm totally geeking out about the VR stuff and the NFTs inside a metaverse. There's so many cool things in this space, and really just like uh, limited to the time that's available to me, or otherwise I'd be building like across the board into all these areas. So it's so fun.
Uh, and exciting to see that passion. And as well, I guess I wonder, to get a little relevant and hip with the times, what role do you think something like the coronavirus and the sort of the COVID lockdowns have had in perpetuating and pumping some of those? I mean, I just think, you're talking about creating virtual environments, and all I can think is the amount of people, myself included, sitting, spending large chunks of their day stuck indoors for lockdown reasons, or not going to an office anymore, and being able to escape out to a virtual world and have that digital ownership. I mean, do you think that's the sort of catalyst that's going to cause some real change here?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think so. I mean, due to obviously we're talking here where otherwise we may be talking in person if it was another year. And this is just, I mean, this is really easy. I didn't have to buy a plane ticket, and we may get even more engaging content than if we were all sitting in a room. There's something to be said about this kind of this past 12 months. Which is a topic for another day. We're all forced inside, many of us. It kind of escalated or accelerated people's minds. Where I have a lot of friends that like they wouldn't have ever been able to be allowed to work from home, but now their companies are allowing them to work from home because they've proven that they can be just as productive, if not more. Right. And it's accelerating everything. And I think we're getting to the point, and my kids are doing school from home, and they're becoming experts in communicating with their teachers and their friends online. They're all playing games. My kids are on Roblox and Fortnite, and they're doing everything in like, it's still kind of this 2D, like they're still looking at a screen, but you can imagine a couple steps later where now it's a little bit more, I say I throw the term metaverse out there, but in a sense, right. This is the metaverse. This is just how we're communicating right now. It's very flat. It's this Zoom meeting. But when you kind of extrapolate the tech with the VR stuff that's going on, with the processing, with the internet speeds, with the education, with the new generations, it's not going to take long where it'll be really easy to like almost feel like we're in the same room. So I think all these things, tech coming together, advancements in like this Web 2 or general tech, all this Web 3 stuff with crypto and NFTs, and it just so happens to be that people's minds are a little bit more open to the idea of interacting and engaging with people virtually. Yeah, I think it's going to happen really soon.
I think you're right. It definitely could happen, a lot sooner than people had anticipated. And they keep saying that the history books might term 2020 as the true start of the sort of digital world, and the in the sense of the scope of history. And I guess in that vein, and this is something I've been asking everyone this conference round, because I sort of feel like it's the time to ask that as we kick off a new year with a lot of hope and potential after what was for some a bit of a dark year over 2020. Projecting ahead, we're in the 20s solidly now. I love saying that, the 2020s, not the 1920s. But anyway, we're in the 20s solidly. If we're projecting ahead, let's say out to 2030, give me your utopian vision of your sort of field of expertise. Your NFTs in 2030, get as broad or as narrow as you like. What does that look like if all the visions pay off and everything comes true?
Yeah, it's so fun. I know it's always tough to forecast that long, just because things move so quickly. You're either way off, or you're either way short, or you're way long. It's fun to think about just getting into the VR stuff. That I could see people working in a VR environment. When you see the tech move forward and move out, it's like, okay, everyone's most everyone is working remotely. They're free to live wherever they want. The big cities are kind of broken up, and people can kind of spread around. Where living environments will change. Um, there's going to be a situation where you're earning income in real time, and you don't have to wait every 2 weeks or get paid once a month. Like you're getting streamed your money, which means you're buying things in real time, and you're paying your bills in real time, and you're only paying when your light is on. Um, all the things you own are tracked on a blockchain, whether it's like represented as this item is, the ownership is, I can prove it, or it's just like it just happens to be just tracked, and there's just a record of it on the blockchain. But it's ubiquitous. It's drones are delivering everything you need. We have options and freedom. You don't have to sit on the freeway to get to the workplace. We're a little bit more intentional about our relationships and meeting up with people in real time, because because that's kind of now the exception, and I'm choosing to meet you in a real location. Like those types of relationships mean a little bit more. So I think it's gonna be night and day. And I can imagine when, my grandkids, what their life will be like. And it's one where it's just like unlimited convenience, but it's still so rich. And even though so much is happening through the digital world, it's still going to be, rich and emotional, and you're still going to have tight connections. And I think the tech, while many times lead to something bad and lead to conspiracy theories and lead towards violence sometimes, I think at the end of the day, it's going to win through, and it's going to actually create these more rich experiences and tighter relationships, and overall just more fun.
Well, Jordan, you've inspired me. I got to say, I love your vision. I love your work. I love that you're turning, a good late night joke into an honest to God project to help people, put their artwork out there in the digital space. And I thank you so much for this conversation. It's been an inspiring one. I'm going away with some warmth in my heart. It's not just from the cup of tea I just drank. I'll tell you, it's real. It's there. Jordan Lyall, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us here at REIMAGINE. And for everyone watching, just make sure you stick with us. So much more good content on the way throughout this whole conference. Jordan, thanks again for being with us.
Thanks.